Welcome to On the Radar. I'm Paul Mireles.
I'm Ryan Shoptaugh.
All right, and On the Radar, this is where we take you beyond the forecast. I don't know if you've ever wanted to go beyond the forecast, but that's where we're going. And we talk about all things weather and show you some really cool videos, and we talk about weather topics. We're going to start off with hurricane season. You know what, Ryan? It's been a little bit of a bust so far. I mean, we still have some hurricane season left, but so far it's been kind of a bust.
Yeah, and we had a couple of storms make landfall in North America. So we had like Tropical Storm Barry make landfall in Mexico. We had Shoptaugh that made landfall in the Carolinas. But overall, you're right. By and large, it's been pretty quiet. So take a look at some of this video. This is just kind of an overall map of the basin recently, last 12 hours or so. And, you know, you look at the coast of Africa, there are waves moving off the coast of Africa, Paul, but overall pretty quiet. Hurricane Barry was responsible for moving some rain into south central Texas, but
it was a big factor
in the Kerrville floods.
Yes.
But the big storm of the season, intensity-wise, was Aaron, and that maxed out at Category 5 strength. But thankfully, Aaron did not make landfall anywhere.
It was what I like to call a fish storm.
Yeah, it just stayed out over open water. I think it produced some rain in the northern Caribbean, like Puerto Rico, the DR. Maybe some.
They had some swells in North Carolina.
Right.
A little flooding.
Bermuda saw some high surf and high water conditions. But thankfully, as it maintained strength, it did not have a landfall. So mostly indirect impacts across the northern hemisphere. But it was a big storm. It was almost like 600 miles wide.
Oh, yeah.
Hurricane Aaron was.
Yeah, Aaron was huge.
Matter of fact, and then you just saw that video of Hurricane Aaron. Let's go to this next graphic. This shows you the progress of the entire season so far. So we're only up to the G-name storm, which is Gabrielle. That is the next name on the list, and we have not seen Gabrielle as of yet of this recording. But there's Barry, there's Shoptaugh, there's Aaron, had that huge track around the outer periphery of the Atlantic Ocean. Dexter,
barely
Fernand,
missed Puerto Rico.
Yeah. And then Andrea, most of them fish storms, with the exception of Barry and Shoptaugh.
Yeah. You know what that shows me right there, just by looking at this? Weak Bermuda high.
That clockwise flow that just redirects storms around it and back into the North Atlantic, right?
Right, exactly right.
Yeah, it's just, when you talk about mid-September, it is the peak of hurricane season, Paul. I think at this point in time, as of this recording date, we should be somewhere around maybe like the H storm, like on average, because we've seen 6.
A, B, C, D, F, G, H. Well, we're not, if you go by that,
then
we're not too far behind. But is that where we should be around this time of the year?
I think the average is around 8 named storms around mid-September, give or take, but we're at 6. So below average. So
definitely below average.
Because you mentioned bust, so it's like, is this season? Is it?
I'm throwing words around, yeah. but no, it has been kind of a bust because it was supposed to be an above average season,
right?
And we're running a little bit behind. Now watch, October can just light up.
It really can. Late September can light up.
Late September, October, and the beginning of November can just light up, especially in the Caribbean.
Right.
So, but here's the thing. It's interesting. Is the further west you are in the basin, Mexico, western, like south of Texas,
likely.
It becomes less likely into October, and then it kind of just goes eastward to where by the time you get to the end of the season, Florida, Caribbean, those areas are mainly affected by hurricanes.
Yeah, the upper level jet just kind of pushes them away in that kind of regard.
Yeah, exactly right. So, we still have a little bit left of hurricane season. We're just past midpoint, but so far, can I use the word bust?
You can. It's up to you. It's your life.
Would you use the word bust?
It's just a strong word. So,
hey, it's bold.
It is bold, and that's what Paul is. Yeah.
Okay. We're ready to go to the first video. Are you ready at home?
Show me what you got.
Show you the first video.
Show me what you got.
Okay, we're going to kind of stick on the flooding theme and hurricane theme. All right, this is video of cars driving through flooded areas in Miami on September the 8th.
Oh, man.
Okay, the neighborhood is known as Flagamy in the area of Court Street and 7th Street. But, yeah, really flooded there in Miami. That's kind of treacherous right there.
Yeah,
because in Miami, you don't know. It could be snakes, could be anything.
That's a good point. Florida is known for its craziness sometimes.
Could it be an alligator, maybe?
Yeah, you know, I don't know if Miami has those, but you know, it's possible. It's possible. Usually, Miami is a tropical paradise, but you know, when they get rain, and when Florida gets rain, flash flooding is always it's always a risk because it can happen so fast. They're surrounded by water. You got the Atlantic on one side, the Gulf on the other side.
Oh, yeah.
And you get the sea breeze, and you can get rain coming in both directions.
You can almost set your clock. Not that I've lived in Florida, but you can almost set your clock 2 o'clock and some 2 to 5. If it starts early enough, like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe it can be like a double whammy, like 2, 3, and then it's 6.
Right. Yeah.
But if it's only 1. Maybe it's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, something like that. But it usually doesn't last very long.
Yeah.
But you can pick up some heavy downpours there. Have you ever been to Miami?
Never. I've been to a few spots in Florida.
Miami
but never
is very
Miami.
interesting. I really enjoyed when I went down. Go to Key West.
That's a good spot.
Interesting times.
Yeah.
Key West.
Do we have other video of Miami flooding? Because apparently Miami is just the focal point for a lot of rain. And here is additional flood video of local businesses, a lot of hole-in-the-wall shops that also experience flooding. So it's not just in residential neighborhoods. It can happen and be so inconvenient at times. And you can see this was all over the street, Paul.
Oh,
I mean, this slows down traffic significantly. And this was a problem in Miami in several areas.
That was significant flooding.
Yeah. So this was additional flooding in Miami in southeastern Florida.
Okay. Well, we're gonna keep going. Blondie. You know Blondie?
Expand. What do you mean?
You know Deborah Harry? Or is that before your time?
Before my time, yeah.
Well, she's got a great song. It was called "The Tide Is High."
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It sounds familiar.
And I won't sing it for you, but
you should. But
go and look it up.
Good to continue.
Okay, the reason I say that is for those that like to experience South Florida on the water, okay, right next to it, of course, they all know that the days get shorter and the tides, they get higher. Yeah, we think we live in paradise, but unfortunately, the king tide, when they come in, well, this is what happens. Look at this. Doris Edelman, she lived in Hollywood, Florida for 50 years and knows about the tides, but recently they got much worse over the last 10 years. Okay, so minor flooding is expected, and take a look at that. The tide was really high on this on this date right here. Matter of fact, it was so high, they're using canoes to get around there.
Right, exactly. You know, when we talk about high tide, low tide, and then you talk about something separate, king tide, from what I understand, it's more of like the monthly high tide versus like there's daily high tide and low tides, but a king tide's a much larger high tide that can occur in coastal regions.
Yeah, of course, it all has to do with the moon.
Yeah, exactly.
And the moon cycles. But I guess king tide coincides with where the tide is the highest.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't think there's a queen tide. I don't think.
That's a great question. You know, you just don't know.
Maybe the queen tide is when it's
maybe
like
when it's lowest.
Opposite.
I don't know. You know.
No, then it would. Then it'd be I don't know.
I don't know.
Anyway. You're getting me to talk about stuff I don't know.
All right, next video, we're switching gears and going to California for additional wildfires. I mean, this season has been pretty active, Paul. I mean, in almost every episode on the radar, we've talked about some degree of wildfires, specifically on the West Coast. And I think most of them has been in California. Right. But right now, we're keeping an eye on this fire that destroyed multiple homes and triggered an evacuation in Lakeside. Here's everything we need to know. It started in Southern California around 3 in the afternoon. It spread into a mobile home park. The Lakeside Fire Marshal told us 4 structures burned and 1 person hurt. We don't know the extent of the injury. First responders are still on scene working to clean up the fire. They have stopped it from spreading. All nearby evacuation warnings have been lifted, but an evacuation order remains in effect for that area. As of the last update, the fire burned about 5 acres and is 5% contained.
Man, look at that water falling. If you were underneath that.
Yeah, well, the air support is intense, and it has to be because, I mean, I imagine, the brush in California is dry, and then we've talked about how winds can just carry these embers from spot to spot. So,
tough.
Yeah,
well,
that's tough.
Really tough.
And big shout out to our first responders that are out there fighting those fires, because that's not an easy job.
No, that is not an easy job at all. No, my brother used to film stuff, and he used to go with this, what they called them, smoke jumpers, I think.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, and he'd get the yellow suit on and go and jump out there with them and stuff. And hats off to those guys, man. You got a tough job, and we're glad you're out there. That's for sure. Okay, I tried to go retro with the Deborah Harry and Blondie, right? Mm-hmm. Well, we are going to go retro in this next block.
Okay.
Right? Because we're going to talk about the best of some of the videos from summer. So we're not going to go too far back retro, but we are going to go retro.
Going to the past.
Going to the past. Stay with us. On the Radar. I'll be right back.
Welcome back to On the Radar Beyond the Forecast with me and Paul. And Paul, these are some of the videos that we've talked about in the past, but we want to go over them because they're just such incredible video. And the vantage points.
They'll knock your socks off.
They'll knock your socks off. And, you know, when you look at tornadoes, wall clouds, mesocyclones, you have to get in the right spot. Matter of fact, a lot of people storm chase to get in the right spot. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these viewers that sent in these photos, that's exactly where they were. So let's start off in the panhandle of Texas, which is where a lot of severe storms roll in between, you know, I would say, I mean, it could be year round, but between
Childress.
Yeah.
Amarillo, Dalhart?
This is Lubbock, near Lubbock, Texas. And take a look at this. Would you call this more of a mesocyclone or, I mean, it looks like the wall cloud is almost rotating, but this is just kind of a larger view of the entire supercell.
I mean, look at how low the base is, first of all.
Yeah.
I mean,
how low would you say that base is?
It's got to be 600 feet.
Yeah, a few hundred feet.
Yeah, really, it's pretty low. And so that's a good indicator. Oh, there's no doubt that's, I haven't seen the radar, but there's no doubt that's a mesocyclone.
You know, that's just like to the trained eye. We can't see a huge time lapse of it, but we know it's rotating.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
if
just
you
the
put
way
that in the motion, you would actually see it spinning. If it was in fast motion. Yeah. If it was sped up, there's no doubt. But yeah, that's a really healthy thunderstorm. I'm not exactly sure what happened there. But
that was in Lubbock.
That's pretty healthy. I mean, look how dark it is. It's probably 4 o'clock in the afternoon, probably.
Mm-hmm. And that's the daytime heat helps fuel a lot of those storms.
Yeah, so
you know,
you got a pretty good little gust front there, and you got all kinds of action going on in that thunderstorm.
Yeah, and that was in near Lubbock, Texas, of that mesocyclone.
Near Lubbock. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna go to Morton, Texas. We got a nice wall cloud, which is a lot of times a precursor. Look, that is very low. I don't know how low
that's a few hundred feet off the ground.
A few hundred feet off the ground. Yeah. So yeah, the wall cloud there, which is the extension below the main cloud there, right? So that you got a lowering, and that's a lot of times where the tornado comes out of. So you got to watch those wall clouds. That's pretty good precursor.
Well, you know, that's the first thing you mentioned. You're like, oh man, that wall cloud is low. Why is that the first thing that you look to? Is that indicative of a supercell?
Oh, there's no doubt that's a supercell.
Because is it because of the cold air descending from the updraft? Is that the first precursor you look at? You're like, okay, this is a severe storm.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to have a wall cloud necessarily to have a tornado, but if you've got a nice wall cloud like that, watch out. Usually you have a tornado that will develop. Yeah. A lot of times.
And the thing is, you know,
but by the way, that one, I think that video that we had, somewhere we have it where it is in fast motion and you can literally see
the time lapse.
Yeah, I mean, you could literally see it spinning.
Right.
So, yeah.
And the thing is, this was in Morton, Texas,
Matter of fact, if you look at it long enough, you can see.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's so flat in this part of Texas, so it's easy to see a lot of these storms rotate.
Shoot, out there in the Panhandle, see how flat it is, like a table. You can see about 30 miles away. Good visibility there.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it gets really active. This is probably, I'm going to guess June, because it gets really active in June. That's like the peak for the
that dry line, the squall lines develop, and you can really get some large thunderstorms. All right, let's switch gears. It's still severe weather, but let's go to Central Texas, and this is actually in Windsor Park.
This is incredible. I remember this.
Yeah, this was a few months back, and this is actually near Austin. A lot of hail. And matter of fact, Paul, there was so much hail that residents, had to shovel hail out of their driveways to the extent of almost it being like snow. You know, they had to get shovels and move it out of where they were just to drive out of their house or their apartment.
Those that were transplanted from northern part of the country, they probably had nice snow shovels.
Right.
Which I do not have.
But it's incredible.
If it was me shoveling the hail off of the driveway, it would be like a garden shovel.
But look at that. That is just so much accumulating, and this is probably within hours' time. You don't see this a lot in Texas.
Some of the hail sizes were pretty large to make a splash like that in the pool.
Yeah, probably softball size. I mean,
maybe.
I mean, to make that kind of splash,
that's intense hail.
Yeah, near Austin, Texas, a few months back.
That's pretty impressive there. Okay, let's go out of Texas. That was 3 in a row from Texas. Let's go to Alabama. This is Huntsville, Alabama. You can see the cul-de-sac there in the street, but you can see that tornado just ripping through there.
A lot of the trees don't. I'm sorry. A lot of the houses don't have trees.
Well, you know what I'm thinking here? If this is Huntsville, Alabama, I mean the trees are 75 feet tall. What probably happened here, I'm just guessing, is the developer came in and knocked down all the trees.
Right.
This is probably a new development, is what I'm guessing.
Yeah, it looks really new, but that's a good
either
thing.
that or this is not Huntsville, Alabama.
Yeah, and that's a good thing because when tornadoes rip through Alabama, which happens often, when you have trees in your front yard or backyard, that makes for more of a messy situation because those trees can be knocked down fast and that can hit windows, hit cars, etc. So. But you can see in the distance that is a twister.
Have you ever done any chasing in the southeastern part of the country?
No, but so we talked about Tornado Alley, but that's Dixie Alley, right?
Yeah, that's Dixie Alley. And I have. And
are they different?
You got to be really careful because the trees are really tall. And in some places it's kind of hilly. And so the visibility is not great.
And most of the time, I would say in the southeast, the storms develop differently and they're more rain wrapped versus like the Panhandle, Oklahoma.
And some of the rain's more intense. And so
it's just a different level.
You got to be very careful in the deep south if you're storm chasing.
Different levels. So, matter of fact, let's talk about levels very quickly. And here,
what kind of levels?
This is the EF scale, the enhanced Fujita scale, and this is how tornadoes start. So they start out as EF0. As a matter of fact, most survey damage from the Weather Service from tornadoes from Oklahoma to the Midwest to the Southeast, they're usually EF0s to EF1s, and you can see winds upwards of 90 to 100 miles an hour, and that's kind of the extent of damage you can see. Broken windows from EF1s, poles can be toppled as well. EF2s, it goes up a level. Cars can be flipped over at this point. Do you see those wind speeds, Paul?
You know what? You must use IA on this.
IA or AI?
Well, it's not quite AI level. That's why I say I know it is. It's kind of cool. You didn't make this, did you?
No. Well, this is from our Max weather system. Okay. So yeah, I don't want to take full credit.
But anyway, look at the damage there. Once it gets to EF3, it starts getting real intense.
I watched a documentary recently on the Joplin tornado in Missouri. It was an EF5, and that's what you're seeing right here. I mean, just extensive damage, concrete being ripped out, houses being leveled. I mean, there's nothing left after an EF5.
Tornadoes are nothing to mess around with, but once you get to 3, the damage starts becoming incredible.
Catastrophic.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, there was a tornado that hit my mother-in-law's place out in Mississippi.
Yeah.
Louisville, Mississippi, to be exact. EF4 went through part of that town, and it missed her house by 50 yards or so. But the trees, they're all like about that big around, and they're all like 75 feet. Like, all that was left for like a half a mile wide was these stumps that were like 3 feet above the ground, and they were all like snapped. But the tornado was so close to her house that a like one of those, let's say, what was it? Was it wheelbarrow? Yeah, wheelbarrow.
Yeah. Was it?
Well, the whole handle came off from somewhere.
Oh my
and was
goodness.
lodged into the house.
That's the scariest part.
And also some big limbs were stuck into the house. You don't mess around.
Well, that's what's so scary because EF3 to EF5. I mean, those can break off handles off of wheelbarrows, for example, and then they can launch it as projectiles.
It's a missile.
It's a missile, and even if you're safe in a building or in an interior room of your house, how strong is the foundation of your house?
Well, this is really incredible. The houses that were there right down the street from her, the only thing that was left was like a restroom in the middle of the house.
Oh, see,
or like a little small room in the middle, and everything else was gone.
Well, that's why you go to an interior room.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying?
And the bottom floor. Yeah, I mean, it was perfect. Exactly. And there was a swimming pool with a 2x4 that was a foot below ground level and embedded in the swimming pool.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's incredible stuff. Once you get over EF3, you start getting that's incredible stuff starts happening, and it was totally amazing. So I got a question for you.
Okay.
EF, what does that stand for?
Enhanced Fujita scale.
God, that was
I know, but on the radar, we do a lot of trivia, right, Paul? And
we haven't, but I think we are.
And we're about to. So coming up after the break, the first of one of our segments called Forecast or Falsecast. Stay tuned because you're not going to want to miss this interaction between me and Paul as we go into weather history.
Well, I go 4-0.
We'll see. Welcome back to On the Radar Beyond the Forecast with me and Paul. Paul, we're going to do something a little different in this segment. We're going to do a little game called Forecast or Falsecast.
Well, it's a good thing I like change, and I like to have a little fun.
And you like games too. So here's the first question on Forecast or Falsecast.
Is that your little gadget?
That's
What
my,
kind of gadget
it's
was
my
that?
weather radio, okay?
Okay.
It's my weather radio. In Texas, on Christmas Day in 2004, Houston had a white Christmas.
Okay, it's got just enough ridiculousness, but it's about the right time. But
Wait. Right time? It never snows in Texas on Christmas. What are you talking
Well,
about?
it's just crazy enough that it may be true.
Okay. Do you remember? You've had a lot of
yes,
experience.
You know what? I don't think Houston, I know Corpus Christi in some places did have, but it might have missed. It got Galveston.
Yeah.
It got Galveston,
Okay.
but did it get Houston proper? That's the question. I'm gonna go with it just missed Houston. I'm gonna say false.
All right. What is the answer? The answer is it was the forecast, Paul. It actually happened.
I knew it was close. I remember that.
Yeah, matter of fact, this system dropped nearly 14 inches of snow around the Houston metro. It did stretch from Corpus Christi, Galveston to Houston.
I remember that.
And it missed San Antonio and most of central Texas.
yeah.
But it was a really interesting swath of snowfall.
I remember that. Okay, so is that?
That was number one.
So I'm 0-1.
Yeah, so you're
Okay,
0-1.
boo.
Sorry, Paul.
Bring
you know,
on the booze.
these are tough. So here
Okay.
comes question number 2. Florida's all-time high temperature record is
False cast.
111
False cast.
degrees
False.
in Orlando
False cast.
in June of 2012.
False.
Can I finish the question? Why do you say that? Why do you say that?
Because it rarely hits 100, much less 111.
Okay.
Could you imagine what the heat index would be in Orlando if the temperature was 111?
Oh, it'd be like
The heat index would be like
125.
125, 130.
Right, right. Well, interesting enough, the all-time record is 109 in Monticello, Florida. So it's not too far off, but you are correct. It is a false cast.
I'm going to say false on that 109 too.
No, well, I got it from the National Weather Service. But anyway. All right, let's go to question number 3, Mr. Paul.
Okay.
Back in 1858,
Whoa, we're going way
California
back.
was hit by a Category 1 hurricane, creating extensive damage in San Diego. You know, as a meteorologist, Paul, you don't. The West Coast doesn't
it can't
It doesn't
happen.
really get slammed by hurricanes, though.
Right, it can happen, but who would have been there? What's that guy's name? Bang Bang 49er or something
Is
like
that-
that?
is that his name?
That was a gold rush going on back then. In San Diego, I got to go false cast.
All right, let's see what it was. It was actually a forecast, Paul. I know.
These are tricky.
Well, I tried hard to
These
put
are
these
tricky.
together.
So now I find myself 1 and 2. How many we have? How many of these we have?
We have one more.
So the best I can hope for is 500.
Yeah, 50%.
Okay.
Which
Baseball.
Yeah, we'll see.
Boo, bring
okay.
on the booze.
All right, question number 4. The United States has experienced 6 direct Category 5 hurricane landfalls since 1900. And before you answer, Paul, can you name any of the Category 5s you know?
Any of them?
Because,
What do you think I have some kind of dope? What is this? What do you mean? Can I name any?
The thing is, you have a lot of experience. You have 20 plus years in the business, and you probably know a few of them. But the question is 6 direct Category 5 hurricanes.
Wow, you made this really tricky, man. Really tricky. I gotta go.
Is it a forecast or is it a false cast? Is it true or
So
is it
I'm
false?
either gonna be 2 and 2 or 1 and 3. I can't go 1 and 3. Forecast.
The answer is false cast.
Man, you made these tricky. Bill.
I know.
1 and 3.
The answer is actually 4.
Was it 4?
Direct Category 5. We had Hurricane Camille back in 1969.
Okay, that hit Mississippi, Alabama.
Yeah. It also hit Florida as well.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. And then
the Labor Day storm in 35.
exactly.
Yes.
We have Hurricane Andrew
Andrew.
in 2018.
Yeah.
And then Hurricane Andrew, and the Camille. So the Labor Day hurricane, the Camille hurricane, Hurricane Andrew, and Hurricane Michael in 2018.
Michael.
Michael in 2018.
In 2018.
Yeah, it barreled into Mexico Beach, Florida on October 10th with peak winds around 160 miles an hour.
You know, you
so.
should have underlined landfalls.
Yeah, but when I articulated the question, I said 6
You did.
direct
You said everything
landfall.
correctly.
I tried.
It's just, you know what, though? You're good at this. You need to become like a teacher.
Okay, yeah, or maybe like a host on a game show like on Kent's 5 Plus.
Well,
you know,
if you're the host, nobody's making money.
right? Okay.
Nobody's taking home the prize.
Right. Well, that was forecast and false cast here on,
That was a lot
the
of fun.
radar.
I enjoyed that. Maybe we'll keep doing this.
No, I had a lot of fun putting together those questions, and you have to get a little tricky, especially with the verbiage, to throw you off, Paul, because you know your stuff. So I'm trying to do my best to confuse you a little bit more. So, so that was on the radar, beyond the forecast. If you want to send in your weather videos, weather photos, weather content to Ken's 5
you
Plus,
can stop pulsing the red.
he's like, I know I got it wrong. Stop it. Yeah, so send in your weather content, weather photos to kensweather@kens5.com so we can feature it. Your weather videos on the radar, beyond the forecast, Paul. Till next time, we'll see you back here at Ken's 5 Plus.